Now, repairing carbon fiber parts, doing the touch-up, doing the structural repair, fixing the tabs, we've got a lot of information on this video that I think would be useful and helpful. Somebody wants to do their own work, or if you're working on parts that are unique that you can't replace, or they're replaceable at a ridiculous part, like some of the parts from the exotic bikes. What I try to do in the shop with all my projects is do reasonable repairs that most people with a normal amount of skill can do. None of this stuff requires having very expensive equipment. It's a lot of labor usually and a lot of passion for what you're doing. But we try to pass on some useful information. And today, some information about repairing fairings with CA and putting a really, really nice finish, a world-class finish, on some carbon fiber parts. Good information today. So what I'm going to try to show on this video, some of it in fast forward to keep it from getting too long. I have some fairings that need repairs. They have broken tabs and cracks, both of which before I do the finishing and the painting on them, I want to have them repaired. And anytime you have something that needs a repair like this, step one is to clean the part thoroughly. I like Simple Green or any degreasing agent or combination of both. And if you have a steam cleaner, steam clean the parts, of course. Getting the part clean so that the CA gets a good tooth and getting it etched with some relatively rough sandpaper, something like a 180 sandpaper, or it's not really critical, but getting it clean is step one. And you can see, especially if a part has been repaired before, because a lot of times when you buy a used bike, somebody else has already repaired it. Now once it's clean, getting it sanded, in this case is sticky back sandpaper, and the whole reason for doing that is I want whatever material I'm going to use, the CA and the fiberglass or carbon fiber, and it doesn't really matter, the CA needs to be on something clean and something etched. If it's on something greasy and something smooth, an example, put a drop of oil on a piece of glass and you won't be able to glue anything to it, no matter what kind of glue you use. This came from Brodak.com. It comes in thick and thin, and the other product is Kicker, which accelerates the cure. Usually the CA, and you can see it's going on here. Good idea to wear gloves and get a couple coats on there. It penetrates. It's capillary, so it means it penetrates very well. A Q-tip helps kick it off. The dust in the Q-tip acts as an accelerant. But then if you want, now you could always put some thick on. It's best to put the thin on first. Use the Q-tip as it's like kind of an accelerator. But then if all else fails, you can use the Kicker, which is Freon, and that'll just make it actually kick off, get rock hard almost instantly. Now, if you have some on your finger right now, you probably have your fingers glued together. So it's a good idea to wear these inexpensive rubber gloves. It just protects you from getting damage to your fingers or while you're doing this kind of work. You can also, while it's wet, while the CA is wet, you can take a piece of sticky back sandpaper and sand it, and that'll allow the dust that comes up from the sanding to become part of the repair, kind of like mixing concrete. Now I like to have a brand new number 11 blade, trim off the extra. In this case, this was 2-ounce e-glass, and very common stuff you can buy in any place that sells this kind of composite stuff. Once it's done, I want to put a little bit of a sanding finish on it, because otherwise I have razor blades, those little threads that come out and have CA on them. It's like sanding a pincushion. And you can get one under your fingernail and you'll be a believer very quick. So having a little sanding on it, and then at the very end put an extra coat of the thick CA on it, it makes for a nice workmanlike repair. Now the next thing is to find the parts that are cracked. And I want to bridge the crack with tow. This is called carbon fiber tow. And you want to go, if the crack is from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, you want to go from 3 to 6. In other words, you want to make a bridge right across the crack. Basically using the same thing. You have to clean the material, where it's going to go, sand it with some sandpaper, put some CA on, bridge the gap with some carbon fiber. Once that starts to kick, you can go back, sand it just a little bit, put a little bit of extra CA on it, build it up. but the combination of the CA and the carbon or E-glass, and it isn't really critical what you have. It bridges the crack. And you always want to do all the structural stuff before you even attempt to do the cosmetic stuff. Because what good is sanding the outside of the part and fixing all the paint flaws and doing all that until all the tabs are reinforced, or anything that's cracked, or anything you think might crack. Now, since this is a track bike, it's one of my original track bikes. I noticed it was going to be in rough service, so I tried to make things as sturdy as possible, and at the end, put on a very nice finish. Now, over the years, I've repaired and restored many of these fairings for the exotic bikes that you can't buy the parts for anymore. This is a Bimota, among others. We did some Benelli parts that were unavailable, but we've been able, through using this method with the CA, to basically put these parts back into service. But it's always important to remember the number one thing: get all of the structural stuff done first. Don't start sanding the outside or thinking about the paintwork. It's got to be structurally sound, especially the tabs, first. Now, when doing a repair, it's of course the same thing. Clean the part, sand everything down, what you're going to repair, do the repair with CA. And in this case, we're going to be doing a touch-up. I don't want to have to repaint the whole part. I just want to do that lower edge on this part. So again, using a Dremel tool to burn the holes in. I want to sand it smooth. I want to get it ready, and then I want to put a coat of clear on. I want to paint it and put a coat of clear on with the airbrush. This is the bottom of the motorcycle, and you're not really going to see it, but I'd like it to be, number one, strong, that it never cracks again. So I'm block sanding it carefully. I put plenty of reinforcement inside. Plenty, even more than I think what you need. And this part was a part that was cracked already, and somebody fixed it before me, but it cracked again. Let's hope this one never cracks again. So getting it painted, number one, that's real easy. Back mask everything off so I don't get any overspray. This is a part I like to wait for a nice painting day for this. And these are parts that you just can't go to the store and buy. That's the problem. Partzilla does not stock anything like this. So, and if you did find them in Italy, you'd pay a fortune for them. So being able to do this repair is very nice. Now we want to move the tape back. I've shown that before. Move the tape back, a 1/64 of an inch, 32nd of an inch. Because when I put the clear on, I don't want to have the edge with the black paint and the clear to be the same. I don't want one big step. I want two little steps. It's just easier to block sand that out and make that disappear in the final clear. Because these are parts I'm not going to paint the whole part clear. So this is a repair. Now, using a 5-star, and this is just one of many clears that work fine. I have not had any problem. I always use fast hardener for my shop conditions, and it seems to work pretty well. I used an Iwata airbrush on this job because I didn't want to get a lot of paint buildup on that edge. I wanted the edge to be very thin, and not just enough paint on it I can make that edge disappear. And when I'm done, this is a part that absolutely positively, if you had to go to Italy and buy it, you'd be spending a lot of money, even just the shipping. So once again, of all the things it's important to know about repairing carbon fiber, getting the part perfectly clean before you do anything, because what happens if you sand over wax? You drive the wax right down into the part. So cleaning this part with simple green, step one, before you do anything. And once you have that idea in your mind of how that works, if you take a greasy part, especially this lower fairing, had oil all over it, and you take that part and you just grind over the oil and grease that's there, at a molecular level, you're grinding that down into the part, and you will have nothing but fish eyes in the final part. Now, I spent a lot of time. This is a part, we wanted to leave this part clear carbon fiber. So I wanted to get the whole part sanded down with a sanding block, nice and clean and clear, and then get a final couple of coats of clear on there and buff it out. This is not going to be painted, but that's what that part has to look like. Same thing with the fender, and these are Bimota parts. If I remember right, these are parts you just can't go to the store and buy. So, but it's that thing of, this has got a mold release agent in it, and if you just go to paint over that without scuffing it and without getting all that material off, it's just not going to work. It's going to be a mess. So a lot of the times when you get a nice brand new carbon fiber part, if you want to put an even nicer finish on it, you've got to scuff it down. You've got to block sand it down with, in this case, probably 1500 grit. If you're really fussy, you can do it with 2000 grit. But somewhere in the course of doing things, no matter how you do it, you've got to get the part like just like what you see right here, that it's flat, it's dull, and it's flat. Now that's ready for a coat of 4-to-1 clear. Now these are parts I made. These are unique parts for the 650 when I did the 650 restoration. These parts don't exist anywhere. These are unique. There's several of them on the motorcycle. I think there's 6 or 8. But I wanted them to have an extremely shiny surface, because the bike I did with Bentley black, and that in itself makes the bike extremely shiny. And from far away, I didn't want to see, I'm trying to make the bike have as few flat black parts as possible. Even these kick plates, I made these kick plates from scratch. I wanted them to have a really, really nice finish, and enough finish that if my boot scratched it up, I could just take some rubbing compound and clean it up. So anytime you're making a unique part like this that might take a beating, these are parts that are going to take a beating, of course. But what I want to do is all of these parts, I want to for sure, no matter what bike they go to, I want them to have enough clear coating over the carbon so that in the future, if the bike were to get a scratch, it picks up a stone or something, there's enough clear on there that you can buff it out. Now, a lot of times when they come from the factory, these parts are made in a reverse mold, and they have kind of a nice finish on it, but it's not a finish like when you hand buff something out. And a lot of the parts, and especially the ones I've gotten from overseas, these are made, they're very nice. The carbon fiber work is beautiful, but the finish is just not block sanded flat. It's not sanded with 2000 grit. And if you put that next to something like the Bentley black, you're going to see right away, oh, one is not as shiny as the other. And I would like the whole bike. I would like the whole bike to be like that. But it's the old thing of, first you got to do the structural work, the reinforcing around the tabs, anything that you think might crack in the future, especially if it's a sport bike, or even more important, if it's a track bike, and you think there's a chance you might be doing some repair on it in the future. Well, this always works in your favor. Get it block sanded down, get a couple extra coats of clear on it, and then you've got, at that point, you've got the deck stacked in your favor for whatever happens in the future. Now, for me, it's convenient on smaller parts. It's just as easy for me to hand sand them and buff them out by hand. But of course, everybody's got a different feeling. Some people like to use a machine on everything. But hand sanding is so important. Getting that part flat as can be, just like you see in this picture, flat. Using an 8065 works good by hand. Flits, of course, too. It works good by hand. It works good by a machine, whatever works for you. But in this case, a lot of times I'll be very fussy about getting every corner and every edge and every angle. And when you do the parts by hand, you have that choice. With a machine, yeah, you can do it, but sometimes it catches on an edge or something. And when you're done, of course, it's always the work that you put into it. When it's done, here the part's totally buffed out. And every hour I spend on a project like this, at the end, I'm so glad I did it the right way, because these parts now, they are forever parts. They're, even if we were to scratch them up or in some way put a scratch or a dent or something, the good chance we have enough clear on there that we can just do a little more sanding and buff it out. And a part the shape of this, really difficult to get a buffer in there. Very, very difficult. So it's always good to know how to use a buffer and how to buff things out by hand. And the products are pretty much the same, but knowing what it looks like when it's wet sanded with 2000 grit, once you know what that looks like, and if there's any shiny spots, you go back to the bench. And in the end, it all becomes just labor. No part of this is costing you a lot of money. It's not like when you send a part out to be chromed and they want $300 for it. This is just labor more than anything else. And in the end, when you do it, there's a lot of satisfaction out of having a part that you've buffed out and you've done the repair and you've reinforced the tabs, and you know at the end of that job, you got something you can be proud of. Or if you can buy the part from Partzilla and live with it, that's in the eye of the beholder. But I like this. This is what I really enjoy about motorcycling, is having unique carbon fiber parts. And I've done it on many, many of my own motorcycles. We made some parts. This is Luciano's, one of his RD 400s. I believe Ray or Malcolm, I don't remember who, bought this bike from him. We did unique paintwork. We made some parts for it. And when I got to ride it, it brought a smile to my face. So if you're new to our channel, we try to post something motorcycle related almost every day. It includes riding in most seasons, probably 10 months of the year, working on bikes, constantly doing upgrades, doing the normal maintenance, and trying to customize them up to a point. We love hanging out with our friends at the various meetups and, of course, sometimes at the shop. We have evil twins out of many of the bikes. And carbon fiber repairs and repaints are one of the things. I have plenty of video out on the channel. And just look up my name in quotation marks and the word carbon fiber. It'll all come up. And thanks so much for watching. I enjoy editing the videos, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.